Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This evening I'm going to be doing another movie review for you all. This movie is a horror film from France, French language English subs, released in the year 2023, directed by Adrien Beau, and this film is called The Vourdalak. So The Vourdalak is a period piece in France. We have this lord that had been attacked, his companions were attacked while he's travelling through the countryside, and now he's seeking refuge. So he comes to this fort, and the people in this fort say that they can't take him in, but if he goes through a very dangerous forest, there's a family residing in there that can actually help him. And so this is what he does reluctantly. He goes through this forest, he comes to the family, and now he's trying to get to safety. The family say that they can give him a horse the next morning, and that he can ride to where he needs to go. But unfortunately, what he doesn't realise is that the legend of the Vourdalak is about to cast its presence upon everybody, which creates a living nightmare for everyone involved. So what that nightmare is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on The Vourdalak. This was a completely blind experience. I heard no one talk about it, but I come across this by chance on a streaming site, and I thought this is a French horror film, I need to check it out. And it's actually a vampire film, and I really like vampire movies, but I have been a little bit disillusioned by how generic the vampire subgenre has become. But what I really liked, and the most enticing aspect about this vampire film, is that it's based on a Russian author. So this is a Slavic sort of take on the vampire lore. And that lore I thought was really entertaining. It was a very different type of vampire that this movie portrays. I'm not going to give anything away, but you'll really like the way it goes about its business if you are a fan of the subgenre of vampires and you're tired of the generic sort of washed out sort of subgenre that it has become. So having a different kind of vampire film was always a very good thing, and that was the most enticing aspect, and that was the most entertaining aspect of this movie. So I felt as though I was watching a vampire movie I hadn't seen before. So it's a period piece. I thought as though the movie had a very gothic feel to it. It was a very awkward style of film. The movie doesn't take itself too seriously, which is a negative that I have with it, but I will say that it does create its own vibe of a very caricature sort of nature, almost a cartoonish nature, almost something that it completely takes place in a different dimension, and so it does feel like a fairy tale come to life on screen. And so that was something that I liked, and there were other aspects of this movie I liked as well, but unfortunately there were more aspects that I disliked that I'll go through a little bit later. But what I also liked about the movie is that it does have a sense of dread. You know that something as bad is going to happen, and because the Vourdalak is a tale that people in the West haven't heard of before, this is what keeps you on edge, and this is what keeps you watching. And so the movie does have that sense of impending doom, which is something that I liked. So as far as its look, I thought as though the cinematography, as far as a period piece is concerned, I thought it looked fairly authentic, and I really liked the family. I thought the family were very strange, and when you actually get to know about the family a little bit more, there is that sense of fear factor. So that's something that I also like, but unfortunately that's where the positives stop, and this is where the negatives begin. The movie does not take itself seriously enough, therefore there is basically no scare value in it once the horror set pieces are set in. I thought the Vourdalak looked absolutely ridiculous, and so because it's not taking itself seriously enough, it becomes almost like a horror comedy, and it's just not that funny. Everything in the movie is awkward, and yes, that awkwardness can work as a positive because it makes you feel uncomfortable, but the comedy in the film and the horror in the movie just felt like it was made by a director who didn't really know what they were doing, couldn't really bring this fairy tale to life in a way that I actually thought as though it was rewarding of the actual content that it had. It didn't really utilize all of the potential that the film had, because it just doesn't know how to create that sense of, okay, I'm getting a little bit freaked out here. Because the movie, it just felt like a cartoon. It felt like a really light-hearted movie that was almost poking fun at the lore of vampire. It was almost like a parody of a vampire film. And because the Vourdalak looked really, really silly, I thought some of the interactions between these characters, as I said, it gets to the level of being awkward in a very negative way, because it just doesn't know how to be funny, and it doesn't know how to be scary. And so the whole film felt like a completely wasted potential, because it's taking content that I thought was incredibly riveting, but because it just doesn't have any self-awareness and no ability to really utilize all the avenues of potential, it just comes across as a real disappointment, because I felt I was more frustrated than I was entertained. And I wanted to be entertained because the movie does capture you in a way that is very different, but it just can't execute all of its ideas in a way that I thought it was rewarding. And so as far as a horror film, it's not really scary. As far as a comedy, it's not really funny. It's trying to have light-hearted moments, but it just feels completely out of place. I thought the script could have been a little bit better. As I said, the interactions just felt very off, and the soundtrack felt very off as well. And so you have aspects of the movie that are decent, decent, but unfortunately there are more aspects that are noticeably bad, and it does prevent this movie from being any good. So I thought the ending was okay, but unfortunately it just felt like a really awkward movie. It felt like a movie where it was trying to be something that it wasn't capable of, and so not being itself, you can really notice that. This movie wants to be that horror film, but I saw it for what it really is, and what it is just a real missed opportunity in what could have been a very memorable film, but ultimately it falls flat, and as a result of that, I'm only going to give the Vourdalak 2 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.